On this episode of the Real Life Caddie podcast, Zabbo and I are joined by Detroit's finest, Brandon Bellestri. Now, between the golfers we caddy for and you podcast listeners, we're always being asked for stories and examples of really bad caddying. The three of us are virtually lifer caddies, and one thing we all hate is very poor standards of what we do. With this in mind, we just had to dedicate this episode to a local caddy who has brought himself into the limelight with one of the best complaints we've ever seen. Zabbo hasn't been able to sleep at night waiting to get these stories off of his chest, and in fact, the wee man has been working overtime, investigating like Columbo to get more first-hand knowledge about this caddie's behaviour. It's absolutely brilliant content, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it all. Before we start though, a quick word about our podcast sponsor. Our podcast is sponsored by a golf app called Big Game Golf. Please check it out today and see how the app can benefit you and your playing group's golf experience. The app will help streamline scoring, integrate handicaps, course details, and of course offer a wide range of old and new games to play. Check it out today and please let us know your feedback. In the meantime though, thanks for listening and we hope that you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Life Caddie podcast, and I'm joined by Man Bun and Zabbo. Welcome, boys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be back, finally.
Brandon, fresh from the Big D.
He's back.
I'm back in town. I've had quite a few people ask me, where you been? Haven't seen you in a long time. Where you been?
You have been gone a long time. It's been
I
a
know,
while.
and my name tag has been on the pegboard at Spyglass.
It has.
So I kind of did that on purpose. I
Left a little
wanted
piece of
everybody
you
to
behind,
be talking
yeah.
about me while I wasn't around.
Zabbo has been chomping at the bit.
Absolutely
for about
chomping.
Maybe 3 to 4 weeks about doing this episode. It's going to be there'll be no stories. There will be stories, but there won't be Caddie stories from us. There won't be any shout outs, there won't be any mailbag questions. This episode is dedicated to Caesar.
On his chariot.
On his chariot. It's the best nickname in golf. Well, we've always said this for a long time. You have to earn your nickname. You don't give yourself.
You cannot give yourself your own nickname. Nicknames are earned, and this one was earned in amazing fashion.
Do you have a nickname, Zabbo?
No, I just go by Zabbo.
Leprechaun?
Yeah, some by some players.
Yeah. It's always been...
You got to earn it. You got to earn
Sometimes I say Zabu, Zabuski. Rarely. Zabbo.
There are some caddies who have given themselves their nickname, which
There
is...
are a handful. You can't do it.
I lose a lot of respect for people that give themselves their own nickname.
I don't call them by that nickname. I call them by their birthright. Yeah.
Their real name.
Yeah.
But this lad that we're going to go on to have several stories about.
Several.
People are always asking on the email when we caddy for them, tell us some really great stories about bad caddying.
And there's a lot. I mean, by and large, the caddies out here are really good. I mean, most of them are good, but you get some gems, some caddy complaints. And they hire a lot of new guys year in and year out. And some of them stick around maybe a little longer than they should and accumulate stories and or complaints. And this caddy has them both.
I would have to say that by and large, caddies across the world, Ireland, Scotland, the whole of America, North America, and include Canada, the standards are probably very, very good.
They are,
so
typically.
We have to mention that and just say, if you do go anywhere where they have caddies, you have to support.
Yeah, take a caddy. More often than not, you're going to have a great experience, and you're going to be glad you took the caddy.
Absolutely.
Maybe email us. Maybe we know somebody, because the golfing world is a small network that we could easily hook people up.
We could, yeah, in many different places, yes.
Yeah, you get a recommendation. Who do you know at this place? Oh, we'll throw you. If you're a caddy, email us podcast@glorifydonkey.com and tell us where you work. Give us some stories, and we can put you. When someone asks, I'm going to Cabot Cliffs, I want a caddy. We can say, you want to speak to this guy here. So we're obviously very pro caddy. However, as a lifer, Man Bun, you're a lifer.
Lifer. Started
Zabbo.
at 13, still doing it.
Zabbo, you've done a long time as well.
Lifer, 20 years now.
20 years.
Actually, this past year was 20 years.
I think one of the most offensive things, I don't get on with everyone where we work. It's impossible to get on with 400 people.
That's very true.
But at the end of the day, we're all caddies, and I respect good caddying. There's people I don't like, and they're good caddies.
There are, absolutely.
But the one thing that really gets under my skin, and I know I've spoken at length with Man Bun about this, is bad caddying.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start with what the complaint that we saw on the board?
Well,
how do you want to kick it off?
Let me just set it up. So a few weeks back, I'm sitting on the bench early in the morning, and there's a handful of guys around, and this one caddy, Brian B., who's been there forever. He's been there forever, and he's
angry, Brian?
Yeah, well, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, he's a little curmudgeon-y, and he gets fired up very easily about certain little things. So I'm just sitting there talking with him. We're talking, I mean, you get him talking on politics, he gets fired up. Sports, he gets fired up. So he's fired up about something.
He gets fired up about everything.
I forget what we're talking about. But anyway, so there's a job coming up at 8:10 at the week course. And then this caddy rolls in, and he goes, hey, man, I'll buy that job from you for $20. And Brian looks at me, looks at the caddy, and goes, you mother effer. He goes, you need to walk away right now. The caddy throws his hands up like, what'd I do? He's like, you need to walk away right now. You've tried to do this from me 2 times previous. He goes, what are you talking about? I've never seen you before in my life. He goes, you know what? You were so effing high the last time you tried to do this. You probably don't remember that you did it. And the caddy's like, oh, whatever. So he walks away. So I go up to the podium for my job later, and the starter goes, that caddy didn't get out, did he? He's like, I said, no. I said, I actually took a single because he was going to take it, and I didn't want him to get out. So I took it in front of him just because I saw what he did. He's like, yeah, I'm going to try to make sure he doesn't get out all day because he tries to buy jobs from me as the starter.
Wow, that's big, people. Just
Big
in case
people.
you don't know the extent of that. That's huge.
All this has happened. Now, this episode is called Caesar on His Chariot. I've heard many stories about this caddy. I had never met this caddy before. Come to find out after the fact, this was Caesar.
This is Caesar.
This is Caesar. And I've heard numerous stories from different caddies about this caddy. And the best part about it was, this is the caddy that has probably the greatest caddy complaint of all time that I've ever seen. I mean, probably either of you guys seen. This is how you earn your nicknames. And I actually have it right here if you'd like me to read it.
Hail Caesar. Here we go.
This, I mean...
Let's hear it.
This is wonderful penmanship, I've got to be honest.
Legendary.
Here we go.
I should have had this conversation with the caddy master. A few examples of my caddy's behavior were playing music from his caddy bib, getting very close to the wife and heavy hitting on her, yelling big course whenever his players hit a good shot, yelling at other caddies coming by on other holes, talking during other players' swings, riding on the back of the golf cart with one arm outstretched as though he was Caesar on his chariot, and yelling at the group in front of us to play faster. Truly unbelievable.
That is 5-star.
Unbelievable. The best caddy complaint I've ever heard. And this, folks, this is how you earn your nickname. What is his nickname going forth forever and ever and ever?
Caesar.
He is Caesar. Yeah.
If and only if I actually acknowledge him.
So I didn't know who he was until that incident with Brian B. happened. Now that I know who he is, anytime I see him, he is Caesar.
So let's break down the complaint, actually, because I you have to admire the penmanship. It's well put together.
Very well put together.
He left quite the mark on the guest's experience.
The first complaint, playing music from his bib.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. I mean, playing it loud. And you know, I talked to so many caddies about this particular caddy complaint. And typically, if they haven't heard it, I read it in its entirety. And they all say this actually describes this caddy to a T. On every loop that he does, this is exactly what he does.
Kind of ballsy to be playing music. I've seen it with other caddies. I sometimes take my JBL, my beatbox.
Yeah, if you know they're going to play.
I know the players.
Yeah.
We play. Anyone listening to some music, if you don't have your own speaker. But for unwanted. Just
to play your own music from your caddy bib and just your own collection. Yeah, that is...
absurd. That is absolutely absurd.
Crazy. But it's, you know, based on the stories we've heard from other caddies, it's not the worst of what he's done.
We then go on to heavy hitting on the wife.
Heavy hitting on the wife?
Yes.
Well, I've seen that. I saw it yesterday, actually.
Was it by you?
But heavy hitting, okay, it can happen. It can happen.
Yeah.
Not the worst, but still unacceptable.
It happens commonly. With Caesar, it happens a lot.
It must have been bad enough that the husband obviously felt, I need to complain about this.
Yes. Well, obviously, yeah.
Unwanted advances. Next one.
Yelling big course every time his players hit a good shot.
That would get old very quickly.
Very old.
very quickly.
Well, apparently it was very old for this guy. He didn't like it at all. He didn't like it at all.
There's sometimes I'll scream 4 if someone hits a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, 4 is acceptable, but you're not screaming, big course.
I tend to make little noises after long putts go in.
Yeah. Little hoorah.
Little hype man, like a hype man, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Caesar's the ultimate hype man.
Dude, he takes it to the next level.
He does take it to the next level. Yelling at other caddies coming by on other holes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give a wave if you know the guy. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, but
you're not screaming. Yeah. Okay. He's probably doing it in every hole. And then
talking during other players' swings.
Okay, it can happen.
That does happen.
It does happen a lot.
People have a lot of questions. People tend to forget about others, unfortunately.
Etiquette is very poor here.
Poor etiquette.
Do you know he plays golf. He is actually a golfer. I know.
And like a decent player?
I don't know about the quality, but I definitely know that he plays golf. These are basics. These are absolute basics.
And then the absolute cream of the crop on this complaint, riding on the back of the golf cart with one arm stretched, with Caesar on his chariot. I mean, that is just legendary. There's only one other caddy I can think of that does that, and he's normally on request, and his players are looking for that. But I think you guys know that caddy, but
does not have his 4 points of contact down while safely riding the cart.
That's true.
That's a really good point as well.
Yeah, you're risking injury there.
I've seen a lot of caddies texting while they're in the back of a cart.
Oh yeah. Checking their bets, their football scores.
Exactly. Yeah, it was so important. All the time. You had to check it between the 4th and the 5th shot there. But that's brilliant. And then there's one final one, isn't there?
No, that was the last one. It says truly unbelievable. Oh, yelling at the group in front of us to play faster.
Oh, that's going to work.
Leave that up to the marshals, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the players.
Or the players.
Yeah, the players.
You should not be yelling at a group in front of you.
A caddy's job is just not to get involved. Like you especially resort golf. If you caddy at a club, they usually have a stipulation on how long it's going to take.
People don't take that long at a club.
They don't,
because there's repercussions.
Yeah, exactly.
In the social layer of.
But as a caddy, there's no good outcome for you about shouting at a group ahead.
Nor will it do anything.
What is that, like, out of 100, what does this kid get as a rating?
100 being really bad, or
100 being brilliant, and then 0 being garbage? Like,
I gotta give him a 5 for at least yelling big course. At least give him a little hoorah when they hit a good shot. But all the other stuff kind of.
There is the incident in which that his behavior matches up with the behaviors of the player, because I saw it one time at the week course.
Uh-huh. Oh, you saw Caesar in action?
To me, as much as I shook my head slightly, I noticed that the players were having quite the time.
Yeah.
You could hear them from 3 holes away. And I love seeing people have a good time, and they were being quite obnoxious.
What course were you at? The week course?
At the week course.
Was he yelling "wee course" every time they hit a good shot?
No, didn't hear the week course chant one time, but there was a lot of yelling.
I got a text from another caddy who worked with him about 3 months ago. He said, "Listen, you might be getting a phone call. That group you saw me with, Caesar, they complained." I went, "Really? I thought you guys were having a really good time." Now
Caesar was
having a great time. Caesar's a real close talker as well.
Yeah.
He gets right in amongst it. And he'll look for, when a pack of lions are sort of stalking prey, they'll look for the weak one.
Of course.
Just the baby or the weakest, the oldest in the pack, and they kind of knock them out. That's the impression I get with Caesar. He obviously isn't a great reader of the room, but what he's doing is he looks at the 4 or the 2 he's working for, and he's certainly trying to go for the easy meat that he can sort of, be brothers with. It turns out there was one player in the group that did not like them, and he complained about both caddies, which is really strange because I watched the other caddy. He was just trying to distance himself from Caesar.
Well, that's what happens. You get lumped in with the bad caddy sometimes.
And they were buying him drinks.
Tip killer.
And so he's out there. You now have a caddy that's loose anyway, and you're going to, throw him some beers.
Lubricate him up, yeah.
But that complaint came maybe 2 weeks before I read the board. Now, I think the management got so many questions
Yeah, they took that.
They took it down because I wanted to get a photo. I had to go.
So good.
I had to travel 2 miles to go to a different board to get the photo.
It was worth it, though.
It was worth it. It was definitely
worth
worth it.
I have it in my phone forever, and sometimes if I need a good chuckle, I just reread it.
Bring it out. But that was within 2 weeks that he had those two complaints that I knew about.
Bro, anytime I talk about this caddy, because I bring it up because it's just so comical to me, and other caddies hear it. You invariably, other caddies he's worked a lot. He's worked with other caddies, and they all have some gem of a story. I mean, John Brown, good listener to the podcast, he had one. They were working for this NHL, like Hall of Fame NHL player. Forget who it was, and Caesar wasn't even working for him. But this guy liked to shoot his own yardages on everything. Trusted the caddy, whatever. Yeah. John's caddying for him, but shot his own yardages everywhere. Like always had his rangefinder, put it back in its little sleeve. Always shot yardage. Well, they get to the 10th hole. Caesar goes out in front, right? He's not even caddying for this dude. He took his rangefinder. He's sitting on the 10th hole. And he's just looking at whales through it. And this guy is on the tee trying to shoot covers on bunkers, and he's like, where's my rangefinder? Oh, no, he's super attached to this thing. He doesn't know. And meanwhile, Caesar's just out there looking at whales, and finally, John realizes, like, he doesn't have a rangefinder, but he's out there looking through a rangefinder, and they go out and like, hey, bro, is that so-and-so's rangefinder? He's like, oh, yeah, I took it. I saw some whales. I just wanted to go whale watching.
Well, I was aware of his existence before anyone knew about him because a good friend of mine, he'd actually stayed at his house. And this is a belter. You boys will love this one. This lad partakes in smoking weed, and he'll quite often take a bong rip before he goes to bed.
A lot of people smoke weed, do.
As a lot of people in California do. So this one night, he decides that he's just going to take a rip before he watches some Netflix and fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the next thing he knows, he's lying on his back and his face is numb. And Caesar had wanted him to go out into town, and he was the last one to use the bong.
Mm-hmm.
This guy reckons that Caesar had thrown white powder in it.
Put a little marching powder in there.
So
now we know where Caesar's getting his energy from.
Can you imagine that? That would be a bit of a shock. He said all of a sudden, it's like Johnny Depp, you know, what's the movie about?
Blow?
Yeah. And he says, I can't feel my face. And
face is numb.
And that's what this lad said. He says all of a sudden he couldn't feel his lips, and then all of a sudden he couldn't feel his face.
He didn't go to sleep very soon thereafter.
As I say, I knew of his existence well before he was out here, and I think some people absolutely love him because, as I say, he looks for someone that
there's certainly that personality for certain groups. But another caddy told me he was working with him at the big course, and they get to the 7th hole, and he lights up a joint. He's caddying for this. He's never met these people before. It's a husband and wife, about 70 years old. He lights up a joint in front of the whole group, and he just starts puffing at it. And he goes, "Yep, I have to light up a joint at the 7th hole at the big course." And he looks over at his husband and wife, goes, "Hey, you guys want to hit this?" They're 70 years old. They've probably never smoked weed in their life. And he looks at the other guy. Hey, man, you want to hit this? He's like, nah, I'm good, dude. I'm good. You talk about not being able to...
Which way's the wind blowing?
Yeah, the smoke's telling him that.
That's off the charts.
But he says, yeah, every time on the 7th hole, man, you got to light up a joint.
Yeah, undescribable. Very unique.
This is Caesar.
That's horrifying, isn't it? I think it's brilliant in a way.
It is very brilliant.
I've almost wanted to work with him.
I didn't I tell you when I first heard the complaint and like I heard he was still working, I was like, we kind of need to put him on a job with us just to see. And you're like, dude, I've heard the stories. I don't want him out there with me.
Well, we have groups that we probably could tell them ahead of time. Listen, we're bringing a roster with us. This is about content for you guys. This is about entertainment. You don't care about the golf, but watch this unravel.
Do you have Caesar's phone number? Maybe we should get.
I don't, but we could definitely get it.
The first time I saw him in action was I was on 7 at the week course. A lot of people go right on 7, and a lot of people go right on 8. And so the balls kind of, some of the tee shots, a majority of them filter to the same spot. So in the case of the caddy would, sometimes want to sneak the cart across to where that ball wound up in the way low spot, nearly 90 yards right of the cart path.
Yeah.
And so Here he comes. I'm on 7, which is the low spot where the ball comes. And he just comes riding this cart right across the fairway. And this was well before we test drove the carts on the course deal.
Yeah.
And Buck and Bronco through the mole holes and the uneven, dirt.
Full speed.
And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Never seen this guy before. New caddy, acting a fool. Just despicable.
Yeah. Pretty standard behavior. That was a calm day for Caesar.
And I'd like to mention that the fact that he made it through the quote training.
Yeah.
Says a lot.
I wonder if he was yelling.
Says a lot.
Doing the hoorah during training.
I think the worrying thing is that when you have multiple complaints like this, you're still there. Like when you think about anywhere you've worked, I've worked at several different establishments, and people have got fired for way, way less than.
Well, you start putting in writing, you was heavy hitting on my wife. Yeah, you would think that would be a fireable offense. But
hashtag me too.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that, you would think you would be terminated for.
That really, that's a good question. Lighting up a joint is unbelievable.
Pretty crazy.
There's a lot of guys that will hit their pen or whatever, but they're quite discreet about it.
Yeah, they're discreet. They're not on the tee saying, got to do this every time I'm on this hole. Here, you want some of this? Well, at least he was trying to share. He was trying to share.
Sharing is caring, Caesar.
Yes, that was very polite of him to share.
I'm quite tolerant of behavior, right? I am. I mean,
to a certain point.
And so I look at it, I'll always try and find the funny part of it. But if you actually scrape it all back, it's absolutely horrific, isn't it? He's making Caddie an absolute mockery.
Well, mockery. And then you talk about him playing golf. Here's another great one. There was caddy appreciation not too long ago. I mean, maybe 5-6 months ago, there's caddy appreciation.
We get that?
Well, from 3 to 3:30 in the middle of February, yeah. But anyway, so they get out to the golf course, and my boy Troy is playing with him. His wife happened to be pregnant at the time and riding in the cart. And Caesar actually happens to be paired with him.
Caesar the father.
And then he introduces himself. So they're playing golf, and all of a sudden, like Troy's bag's on the cart, and his wife's driving the cart, but he's walking mostly. Mm-hmm. Caesar starts riding in the cart, getting very close to the wife. He's smoking and acting a fool, and Troy's like, "What is this kid doing?" And he's hoorahing, yelling, jumping back and forth. And Troy's like, "Who is it?" And they never met him before. This was the first time he met him. And then 14 comes around, and Caesar wasn't really feeling it. He's like, "Hey man, I think I'm gonna go in." He's like, "Troy, your wife's gonna give me a ride in. You mind if that's it?" And Troy goes, "You're not going anywhere with my wife. Get out of here. You can walk in if you want to go in."
Good for you, Troy.
Yeah.
Caddy appreciation.
Beat it, kook.
And this was before Troy didn't hear it. So I read him this complaint. We started talking. I don't know how we got on the subject, but I read him the caddy complaint. He's like, "Dude, you have to send me that so I can send it to my wife just so she can see." This is exactly what he was doing to her. So
heavy hitter.
This is not an isolated incident with Caesar.
Caesar for president.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely, I'm in shock.
And the stories are still compiling. I mean, he's still out there.
I heard that he went to another caddies club and just used his name, stuck everything in his tab.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar.
That's ballsy. I'd love to know, what's his background? Is this guy like a delinquent? Is he?
I bet it sounds, we're pretty good profilers. It sounds like Caesar hasn't really had to work his adult life. He's probably had a lot of stuff handed to him, and maybe this is his...
Yeah, he's either a complete delinquent who went through the system and doesn't care,
or the money.
Opposite comes from a ton of money and, oh, well, it's just Caesar being Caesar.
Love you, Caesar. Maybe we should have Caesar on the podcast.
I just want to work with him.
Yeah.
I would love to work with him, but find the right group. Say, right, lads, you're going to be entertained today. I'm going to take a real backseat and just let it play out.
Steer the show. You want to work with him, Brandon?
Yeah, I could work with him.
I'd do it. Yeah, you've seen him in action. I mean,
I've
you know
seen
what
him
he
in
does.
action. I actually had a short conversation with the other day. He just started talking to me and chatting me up, and
I would probably barter with him in the job.
What do you mean?
Well, if he offered 20, I'd say okay, 50. Why not?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I told Brian, I was like, I'm going to sell mine for 20. After when he went up, he's like,
go and shank balls.
He walked away after that incident. He walked away, and then the other Troy Bumgardner was sitting down there. We started talking about, like, maybe we should sell ours.
Yeah, it's a tolerant lot we work with, because everyone will just go, oh well, just another story. And we've had some belters over the years, but this is watch this space. What's the best way of dealing with it?
What do you mean, dealing with it as the player or as like the caddy manager?
Like if you were caddying with them and you saw that type of behavior, would you pull him by the elbow and be like, hey?
I don't know, man. I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably let it go. I'd probably just let him hang himself. But if he's doing that to the wrong people who don't want that, I'd definitely say something to him.
Because obviously there's a situation where you can be guilty through association.
Of course. I'm not throwing myself to the fire because of your behavior.
I mean, considering the amount of money that the management services make off Caesar,
keep him around.
He's too valuable to release.
He's banging out the loops.
He's too busy. He's too big an asset.
He's too big of an asset to the management program.
No, he's an ass.
Well, he must be a nightmare for somebody, because a lot of people see these complaints and somebody must be.
We've been talking about this for a while. We're gonna do an episode in the somewhat near future on caddy complaints because, like we said, most caddies by and large are great, and we have rave reviews. But it's not going to be fun for us to sit here and talk about all the great reviews that caddies get, but the bad ones.
It's like the
complaints,
news, folks.
Yes.
You want to hear about the bad stuff.
Yes, we're gonna do an episode on complaints, but we felt this complaint was so good we had to just dedicate an entire episode to Caesar.
Absolutely, and got his own nickname. And I called him. I saw him, and I said it was. I said, quite the complaint you got,
Caesar.
I said, that's your new name, Caesar.
Yes.
And he was like shaking his head. But I think the best punishment is probably embarrassment.
Yes, we need to get him a name tag with Caesar and put it on his bib or hat.
I'll maybe buy him a bib and embroider it on there.
Caesar.
And present him.
Nice
Caesar,
font.
and then underneath you put a little chariot on there. you get like a little patch of a chariot and put it underneath.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can find that in the stock images. Just
100%,
a nice little
Caesar
chariot.
on his chariot.
Well, I don't know if I'd use a chariot. I think I'd maybe use a golf cart.
Yeah.
A little golf cart.
And then have him have like a little figure with his arm outstretched. Yes.
Yeah.
Caesar on his chariot.
We should all pitch in for whatever a bib costs.
I'm down.
Seen the cost of those things?
I'll pay it myself.
Yeah.
I just want to see him wear it.
Tell you what, they're not shy, are they?
No, I mean, make a buck wherever you can, right? Isn't that the American way?
Very true.
Well, see if you'd been at the Big D
Yeah.
and that complaint had come in, what would have happened?
Oh, he'd never be seen again.
Yeah. They'd disappear him.
And that's not even a real caddy program. That's a country club tradition of basically children doing work at teenagers doing work during the summertime.
Caesar wouldn't survive there.
Get them off the streets.
Yeah.
No, they'd be like, beat it.
Yeah.
If you come back, we'll call the police. See you later. Never to be seen again.
I'll tell you about a complaint I once watched. I was 14 and I used to hang around. You're always waiting for a lift to go home or waiting for the bus to go back home. And I was hanging out in the Caddy Masters. And there was a lad called Stuart. He used to work in the Navy and slightly overweight, slovenly. I think he had to wear a shirt and tie, but it was one of those clip-on ties. It always had sort of food stains.
Nice. Can never mistie those.
Everything was sloppy about him. And he would sit behind the Caddy Master's desk. So you'd walk in the door, there'd be bags left and right and the ducats, and he would sit and watch the horse racing with his feet up on the desk. Okay, right? So he was the assistant to the Caddy Master. So he was bottom of the pile in the Caddy Masters, but he would work every morning and then do 4 or 5 hours customer service, if you want to call it that. So I remember this one day, I'm just kind of hanging out, waiting for a lift, and he's sitting watching the horse racing, reading the paper, smoking a fag, feet up, and this guy comes in, and he's like, who do I make a complaint to? And Stuart, he didn't even open he just kind of
this guy
pointing his finger at himself, going, that'll be me. What's the problem, mate? Called him mate. And the guy goes, I got to complain about my caddy. He was absolutely awful. He was playing music from his bib. He was hanging off. He was gives the complaint. And Stuart says, here, take that piece of paper, write it down.
Pointing with his fag hand.
Yeah, again, it never took. Yeah,
Yes.
never broke stride.
No.
And he still gets feet up on the table, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm having to pass the piece of paper and the pen to the American. He says, and we're playing tomorrow morning, and I just want to make sure I got a good caddy. And Stuart went, what time are you playing? And he says 6:30, and he goes, I'll be caddying for you tomorrow. right. So then the best part comes, and the guy finishes his complaint. He says, oh, thank you so much, Stuart. You've been wonderful. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. And he pushes the paper. I grab it. I give it to Stuart. Stuart just winks at him. I see you tomorrow, pal. Right? The guy goes out. He scrunches it up, throws it over his shoulder, and he goes, wanker.
And he probably didn't caddy for him the next day.
He probably caddied for him the next day.
Yeah.
And because the boy handed him £20. I remember that. That was
Wow.
he threw him 20.
There you go.
And I was like the in-between guy. I'm like handing him the paper, the complaint. He scrunched it up. What he's a wanker. But
Stuart knew what he was doing.
He
Wasn't his first rodeo.
Caesar Stuart probably cut from the same cloth. But no, I tell you what, fantastic boys. Well, that brings us to an end of that short episode. You happy? You got that off your chest?
That was fun. That was as fun as I thought it would be. I really enjoyed it.
Do you know what we maybe do? Maybe take the complaint, frame it.
Yes. I already have it on my wall. I mean, yeah.
Double mat it.
Double mat it.
Yeah.
Put a nice gold foil frame on it.
There should be a hall of fame of complaints, and that would be numero uno. That is the best caddy complaint
Until the
I've ever
next
read.
one.
Yeah. I
Hard
can't
to
wait to
top.
see. I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there. We have some compiled. We are going to do an episode on caddy complaints, but
I think the listeners would love that.
yes,
Actually,
but this Caesar on his chair, I mean, you can't make that up.
yeah, there used to be the caddy comments book, and they would leave it in the caddy barn.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Wall of Shame.
I might have actually turned up early for a loop if that was still around, because that was some good content.
Very good content.
Excellent. Okay, boys. Anything else to add?
Yeah, it's hard to find good help nowadays. Just remember that when you have a great experience with a caddy, just know that that caddy was putting forth their best effort and really connecting with you and giving you their best. And
Show me your appreciation.
Yeah.
show them your appreciation.
tip 'em fat.
Dig deep.
Yeah, I would actually say that to golfers. Anywhere you're going and they have a caddy program, if you plan to have a caddy, speak to people, find out, get a recommendation.
If you say, hey, we want to make sure we got great caddies.
Yeah.
And you just say maybe like, we've had different caddy experiences in the past, throw the guy $20, whatever. He might call you a wanker or he might get you a really nice caddy.
True.
But it's a fact. You got to go with a recommendation. And I know the three of us, most of what we do comes off the back of people we know, or, oh yes, you caddy from my buddy. And
Exactly.
It's very, very important. So
It's a lost art.
if you have any great caddy stories, we want the worst of them, please. The complaints, send them in, podcast@glorifieddonkey.com. If you want to support us, go to the website, glorifieddonkey.com, buy us a beer.
And share it. Share it with our people. We still want to grow this thing. So share it with your friends. Get them listening.
Absolutely. Man Bun, you have a great afternoon. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
You working today?
Yep.
Nice.
I'm working later today with none other than
Oh.
Big G.
Wow, look
Yeah.
at you two.
Exactly. Yes. Well, I'll be showing him how to do it. He's been away for a few weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I actually didn't misread one putt in the last 36 holes. Not like I misread a lot of putts, but sometimes
Did they read
you
their own
catch in a
putts,
hot
or-
spot. Sometimes things are just flowing, and then sometimes you're like, okay, maybe you got a bad putt or whatever. In the last 36 holes,
You've been spot
on, no second guessing, no
Wow.
no long-winded reads.
He's in the zone.
Very short answers. I'm learning to trim the fat. After all
Good.
these years of caddying,
Good.
you'd think you'd have it down, but there's always room for improvement.
100%.
Get to the point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cut to the chase.
Sometimes it's tough, especially when you're at like weird course like the wee course. I've been caddying there a lot the last month, and you kind of have to give a little dissertation sometimes. Well, you do this, but then it does that and that and that and that. I hear you. It's tough
For as much as I talk, very little information. Less is more. But I'll tell you, I had
Yes.
a guy in the last 36 holes who hold everything, and it was, I've never seen anyone make so many putts with such a bad stroke.
That's fun when that happens.
He walked forward on the putt, and he sliced it.
And he was making everything.
And he made, yesterday, he had a single putt on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And they weren't tap-ins.
Yeah,
Because
that's fun when that happens.
Anything inside 3 feet, 4 feet, they were picking up anyway. So they were proper 10, 12 footers. But I've never seen anyone I said, that is the worst stroke I have ever, I think it was the worst stroke I've ever seen. Walking, so he's moving into the ball.
And he's making them.
And slicing them.
That's fun.
Because it wasn't even I said, you don't even push the ball, you slice them. But, you know.
Whatever works.
There's a million ways to hold a putt. So,
Yeah.
you too, Zabbo, thanks for your work bringing
Thank
that
you.
to the listeners' attention. One last thank you, that's to the listeners. Please get out there, like Zabbo said, share the podcast, rate it and review it for other people. That's always worthwhile. Check out our sponsor, Big Game Golf. If you haven't already downloaded the app, please go and do that. And until the next time, get out there, enjoy your golf, but more importantly, don't get angry because
You're just not that good.